Hello everyone, this is Frank DeMar with the End Times Research Ministry. Today is February the 9th of 2017. 5 days ago I made a video for you, as you could see right down here, on February the 4th of 2017, saying goodbye to the food. And if this is the first time you came to my YouTube video, I just want to let you know that if you go over to my site, this is how you navigate. If you saw this link, just click the link and you don't have to do anything. You'll see the drop downs here on the right hand side. All you have to do is just scroll down, and this is the video that I made 5 days ago. And the reason why I did this is because I've been tracking this information about mass bee die-offs for a very, very long time. Started in 2007, started to accumulate all the reports so that I could give you this documentation in my book, The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth. Now, if you're one of those people who never read the Bible, you may even be a Christian who calls yourself a Christian, but you don't read the Bible. If that's the case, you won't know the warnings that Jesus gave to us. And of course, one of the warnings that he gave to us had to do with famines in the last days. You could see where Jesus spoke about it in the book of Matthew chapter 24 verse 7, Luke 21 verse 11, and also in Mark 13:8. Now in all these passages you'll see famines are included, but this is only a small portion of these Gospels. When you read the entire Gospels, you'll see the rest of the events that the Lord prophesied that will take place in one single generation, and it's happening in our generation. It's never happened before. So if you're one of those people who don't know Bible prophecy, let me just show you a quick look at this video that I made 5 days ago, giving you the scripture, because what I always do in this ministry is I'll show you the word of the Lord and then I'll connect the dots for you. So let me just show you the word of the Lord via the beginning of my video 5 days ago. So I'm going to stop the video right here for a second, because you saw that the word talked about famines. Now, in the book of Revelation, the book that was actually spoken to by Jesus Christ and gave to the youngest apostle, Apostle John, and he actually wrote down what he saw when he was in heaven concerning the last generation. Generation would be going through this tribulation period. And one of the verses in Revelation chapter 6, for example, it talks about this black horse that would be coming. And you'll see it says, "And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, 'Come and see.' And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat upon him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou wilt not hurt the oil and the wine." You noticed I highlighted the balance, because famine in the last days is a major event that's going to take place. And if things are out of balance, it could easily cause mass destruction around the planet. Now, how could this happen? Well, one of the ways the balance could be overthrown very easily is if you have the pollinators, bees, for example, and other pollinators that go extinct. Because if those pollinators who pollinate all the crops die off and the crops are not pollinated, the food is out of balance. And if the bees continue to die off the way they have been, since monitoring this in 2007, more than likely you will see a massive famine. If you think that this news isn't going to affect you, you're mistaken, because maybe you're unaware of exactly the products, the crops that will be affected and already are being affected if those bees continue to decline the way they have been since I've been looking at the news in 2007. And this website right here gives you a list of the foods we will lose if we don't save these bees. What I'm going to do for you is just scroll down very briefly so that you can see the different crops that will be affected, and as I said, are being infected already. There are 92 crops on this list. Look at this. So just put two together. Jesus talked about the famine. He talked about the balances from the rider on this black horse. And we're seeing one of the things that are tipping the balance right now. And if the trend continues the way it has been, the EPA doesn't step in and stop these harmful chemicals, and it's not just in the United States, it's around the world. They're using the same types of chemicals. By the time our generation is full-blown in the tribulation that Jesus refers to, you might walk into a grocery store like this and see limited amount of food because the bees had died off, didn't pollinate the crops, and you're suffering because of it. The inaction of people today could possibly bring on what Christ shows us in the book of Revelation, at least concerning the decline of the pollinators, the bees, and these other pollinators who are at risk due to these harmful chemicals. Now let me play just a section, just a few seconds of part of the video I made 5 days ago because it really tells a lot. Listen to this.
Yeah, well, colony collapse disorder is like everyone's flipping out because we just have honeybees disappearing at a rate. I think the honeybee population in the U.S. is now less than half of what it was at the end of World War II.
Yeah.
And 1 in 3 bites of food that we eat originates from bees pollinating.
This is a huge
It's like terrifying. Like we're all going to die.
1 in 3 bites of the food that you eat. Did you hear that? That's a lot of food disappearing if the pollinators disappear. And here's the issue. They are disappearing. So much so that just 5 days ago, that after I made this report those 5 days ago, I noticed that there were 2 other reports today talking about this major problem with disappearing bees. As a matter of fact, they've been now placed on the endangered list. So by using pesticides, and there are a host of other reasons why the pollinators are dying, things definitely are out of whack right now. And so far, as of February the 9th of 2017, the EPA hasn't put a halt to these chemicals that are killing off the bees. Let's say, just for the heck of it, the EPA began to regulate these chemicals, and they stopped spraying today. Well, these chemicals just don't arbitrarily go away. They're in the soil and they're in the plants for at least 6 and possibly even more years. So even if they stopped spraying today, it would be 2024 before all the chemicals were to have dissipated enough so they wouldn't be killing off these pollinators. So at this point, as February the 9th of 2017, we're at least 6 years away. What could happen within those 6 years? A lot. We could lose that many more bees, putting more pressure on the world food security. So in that video 5 days ago, I showed you that I started collecting this information October the 28th of 2007. And yesterday, there were 2 other reports that came out. You'll see it's Silence of the Bees premiered on PBS, and also Buzzkill, scientists baffled as thousands of bees wash up along Florida's west coast beaches, stinging beachgoers who step on them. From that 2007 date up until yesterday's news, I've accumulated 148 bee reports. And these reports definitely show us there is a balance problem in nature. If it isn't corrected and these bees continue to die off, And it certainly doesn't look like the governments are moving fast enough to curtail this problem. You will have massive amounts of food disappear, which will lead, as I said 5 days ago, to major food problems, famines, social unrest, and definitely economic problems worldwide. Most of the people do not realize how serious of a problem this is. They're going about their daily lives thinking everything is okay, and it isn't. The road that this generation is walking on is parallel to the warnings by our Lord Jesus Christ. And I personally believe that the disappearing bees could have a major role in causing the famines that Jesus Christ talked about. Now, there are other factors as well that are going to wreak havoc on the global food. Extreme weather conditions, droughts, pestilence, in war, for example. Now, one of those reports that I was referring to came out by the Daily Mail. You'll see it, Buzzkill Scientists Baffled, as I already showed you previously in this video. It says thousands of bees are washing up dead across beaches in South Florida. The insects are either completely dead or in the process of dying, but it has so far kept scientists baffled. It's thought the cause could be anything from nearby pesticide spraying, or even a swarm became so exhausted that they flew into the water. The article will give you some pictures and even a video of the bees dying. And further on in this article, I highlighted it in blue, it says the city of Naples has said crews from the facility's maintenance department were out Monday checking into the problem. The same staff were also out on Tuesday investigating further, but so far nothing definite has been found as to the cause. When you take a look at their video, you see this little guy is trying to live, but obviously he's one of the ones that die off, as so many millions have done previously. I want to play this other report that came out yesterday as well. But the bottom line is this: the road is set. This is the generation that Jesus talked about. Read Matthew chapter 24. And in that chapter, you'll see that the Lord said, this generation will not pass till all these things take place. Our planet is watching devastation taking place with our food, whether it be crops on the land or radiation in the water killing off all types of fish. It's happening now, and people ought to be aware of it.
Just 20 years ago, it was pretty common to see black and yellow bumblebees pollinating flowers all around. Now, though, for the first time ever, the bumblebee will be placed on the endangered species list. Beekeepers have been complaining for years about the mass die-off of the bees. So why is it happening? To talk more about it, we're joined now by Mark Fogel, a beekeeper and the director of research at Greenpeace. Thanks for being here, Mr. Fogel. Can you start by explaining why the bumblebee is so important and how significant it is in terms of human survival?
Well, bumblebees, like all bees, are pollinators. And so we need bees and other pollinators like butterflies and birds to get germplasm, really allow plants to have sex with each other. So male and female plants can cross-pollinate, and therefore we get fruit. About a third of the fruits that we eat in the U.S. are pollinated by honeybees, the bees that are taken around by beekeepers who do that. But there are many other pollinators as well, including bumblebees.
I think you just made bumblebees a whole lot more interesting for viewers there, saying that they allow flowers to have sex with each other. But now that the bumblebee is considered endangered, what are the main environmental stressors responsible for endangering it, at least that we know?
Yeah, one thing I should make distinction between bumblebees and honeybees. Honeybees are the bees that we have that give us honey, like bees that I keep myself, and bees that some beekeepers bring around the country to pollinate crops like oranges, almonds, blueberries. Bumblebees are wild. There are actually 20,000 species of bees, but they're all endangered by very similar things. One is climate change. We're moving bees out of their range. we're making their seasons very irregular. Where I live here in Vermont, the fact that our winters are now kind of warm and then cold and then warm and then cold have killed a lot of bees. There are introduced species like mites that have come into this country the way other invasive species have come into this country, and they're attacking our bees. The heavy use of pesticides like neonicotinoid pesticides, which is one of the most commonly used pesticides in the U.S., it is an insecticide, so it does kill insects. Bees are insects. And it's a particularly pernicious insecticide, which we're trying to get the EPA to ban for the health of bees and therefore for the health of our crops.
Is this die-off irreversible? I mean, what other actions can be taken to save the bees, let alone reverse the process that we've seen?
Well, what we need to do is we need to increase food for bees. We need to increase good, healthy food for bees. In fact, the bees that live in my neighborhood, that live in my backyard, all my neighbors contribute to helping out by planting bee-friendly plants in their yards so that my bees have plenty of good, healthy food because they don't use pesticides. And I pay them back by giving them honey. But what we can do is we can support organic agriculture. We can petition the EPA to ban the use of neonicotinoid pesticides in the U.S. There's already a moratorium underway in the European Union. We'd like to see that here. Those would be some of the most important things. But again, fighting global warming in all its faces is something that's going to help all species across the country.
As you already alluded to, you are a beekeeper. Share with the viewers a fact, something you really appreciate about bees that they might not know.
Oh, my goodness.
Any special piece of information.
Well, honey is an amazing food. It's the only food that we don't digest. We absorb it right into our system. And honey never goes bad. We've pulled honey from Egyptian tombs. It's 2,500 years old. And we can still eat it. It's really a perfect food, and we mess with it at our peril. So I think anything we do to the bees, we ultimately do to ourselves.
And it's, of course, delicious as well. So thank you so much, Mark Flogel, beekeeper and research director at Greenpeace, for explaining some of this for us today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, when we're talking about famine, I want you to take a look at something, because in my book, I have a host of articles, page after page after page, showing us that the fish in the ocean are dying off. And most of those reports tell us, just like the dying of the bees, they're not sure what's killing them. Take a look at this article that came out from Michael Snyder. This came out just a few days ago, actually on February the 5th of 2017. Northern Hemisphere potentially in great danger as Fukushima radiation spikes to unmanageable levels. Take a look at this NOAA picture, because this picture shows you the massive amounts of radiation that is headed out of the Fukushima and going towards North America and obviously South America down here. Now, if you live anywhere in this area, especially here in the United States, as the water and the currents travel, it's hitting the coast. So this radiation moving in the water is of great concern to anyone who lives on the coastal areas that the water is hitting. It says radiation inside one of the damaged reactors at the Fukushima nuclear power facility has reached an unimaginable level, according to experts. Because so much nuclear material from Fukushima escaped into the Pacific Ocean, there are many scientists that believe that it was the worst environmental disaster in human history. But most people in the general population seem to think that since the mainstream media really doesn't talk about it anymore, that everything must be under control. Unfortunately, that is not true at all. In fact, PBS reported just last year that it is incorrect to say that Fukushima is under control when levels of radioactivity in the ocean indicate ongoing leaks. And now we have just learned that the radiation level inside Reactor 2 is so high that no human could possibly survive being exposed to it. According to the Japan Times, the level of radiation inside the containment vessel of reactor 2 was now estimated at 530 farads per hour. These are very, very extreme levels. Now, let's go back a little bit. March 9th of 2016, again, the PBS NewsHour. 5 years later, Fukushima radiation continues to seep into the Pacific Ocean. And people want to know why ducks and turtles and sharks and whales and millions upon millions of different species of fishes are dying in the ocean. You have radiation seeping into the ocean for years. What do you expect? Die-offs in mass numbers. With the help of my colleagues in Japan and around the world, I've spent the past 5 years piecing together the impacts that radioactive releases from Fukushima have had on the ocean, marine life, and the people who live on both sides of the Pacific. In the process of sharing our insights with scientists and the public, I've become frustrated with both sides of the nuclear power debate for embracing either overly alarmist or dismissive attitudes towards the problem. In addition, I've grown concerned over the lack of oversight for radioactive contamination in U.S. waters. As I close out this video for today, let me bring you to the Fox News February the 8th of 2017, talking about the radiation problem in the water.
Well, breaking right now, radiation levels inside a Fukushima nuclear power plant damaged by that tsunami nearly 6 years ago is now at their highest point since that disaster. And experts believe melted fuel is leaking inside the plant almost daily, causing radiation levels high enough to kill a human being with just brief exposure. The latest readings now posing a serious challenge as officials prepare to dismantle the facility. Adam Housen, who covered that triple meltdown in Fukushima back in 2011, is following the story, and he joins us live with more. Adam?
Yeah, Jenna, hard to believe it's been nearly 6 years. And when we initially covered that, it was that great video that came in that really showed the destruction that Japan had to endure from the earthquake and the tsunami. But no one knew at the time the growing threat, which today continues to only get worse. That was the tsunami that took out the cooling system at Fukushima that basically caused the meltdown of 3 reactors that continues to this day. In fact, we're told the most recent numbers due to those meltdowns that nearly 300 tons of radioactive water is dumped into the Pacific Ocean each and every day. The radiation levels, in fact, inside are now the highest levels since 2011. Tokyo Electric Power Company, TEPCO, which is in charge of this area, reports that the radiation level has reached 530 sieverts per hour. To give you an example, it used to be 73 per hour. For people who don't know this stuff, let's put it into very simple terms. 4 sieverts can kill a handful of people. Right now, 530 per hour are being detected there. According to scientists, that's unimaginable radiation levels. A robot was sent in. It only lasted an hour before radiation took it out, basically ruined it. It found a 6-foot gaping hole inside that somehow has to be patched. Due to this high level of radiation, the company assures the public everything will be fine, but we've heard this information from Japan before. There's been criticism even back 6 years ago when this first happened that Japan wasn't giving all the information out. We do know this. They say it will take at least $300 billion and 4 decades to finally fix this area. It's the worst since the 1986 Chernobyl disaster. Again, also, as we get more numbers coming in, Jenna, to keep this in mind as well, they say that right now there's still radiation being detected off the coast of California and Oregon. Now, it's very small, but the worry is with 300 tons of radioactive water going in every day to the Pacific, what is that doing to the Pacific Ocean, Jenna?
Wow, it's a crazy story, Adam. And I remember all your reporting. You did such a great job there. You posted all the photos that you took and the time that you spent in Japan.
Right.
From your experience there on the ground and the precautions that you had to take simply as a journalist, I mean, what do you think about this?
Well, we only got within 90 miles because we had protective gear, but, we didn't know what we were dealing with. And that was one of the biggest complaints. Even the U.S. military was complaining to the Japanese government at the time. They weren't getting the true numbers. And what some people are saying is, has it been this bad from the beginning? And how are you going to fix this 6-foot hole? I mean, a robot only lasted an hour or so because the radiation level is so high. And we really don't all know also what this radioactive water is doing to the Pacific, Jen. And I think a lot of people are very concerned about that. They continue to monitor fish off of Japan. There's still areas you're not allowed to fish in, but that water, as we know, moves towards the west coast of the U.S.
I haven't thought about it for several years, and now certainly we are. We're going to have to follow up on this. Adam, thank you.
This is Frank DeMore with the End Times Research Ministry. God bless.